Hi, my name is Dr. Thomas Nguyen, MD. I'm a board-certified addiction physician. Today, I'd like to talk to you about the dopamine reward system in our brain. Dopamine is the main neurotransmitter for reward and reinforcing behaviors in our central nervous system. When dopamine is released, it is through many mechanisms. It could be through substances, it could be through alcohol, certain behaviors which are destructive but nonetheless compulsive, such as gambling, food. All of these behaviors and result in the escalation and increased dopamine in the ventral tegmental area and the nucleus accumbens, which are the reward centers within the central nervous system. Once the dopamine is experienced as being euphoric and strongly potent to these individuals, the experience is then conveyed to the limbic system. The limbic system is where memory and emotions are processed. So the memory of executing a behavior or ingesting a substance that leads to release of dopamine in the reward system will also have its reinforcement at the limbic system, where there's a certain positive emotion that is associated with the memory of that behavior that causes the release of dopamine in the reward system. The individual is then motivated to repeat this behavior that releases dopamine, because dopamine is required for the motivation for that individual to pursue that same behavior activity that releases the dopamine in the reward centers of our brain. However, the brain can only release a certain amount of dopamine over a period of time. The supply of dopamine is not limitless, and as the intensity of dopamine is being released, the central nervous system try to achieve balance or homeostasis by reducing the number of dopamine receptors in the areas of the nucleus accumbens and the ventral tegmental area. So what happens over time is that these individuals need to do more of these behaviors, or to ingest more food, to ingest more substances, to drink more, or to do more of these compulsive behaviors in order to generate more dopamine to account for the lower numbers of dopamine receptors. Which means that if the dopamine supply has been released into the central nervous system, there's not much dopamine left for these individuals to be motivated to do anything else. And so what happens, for instance, in a situation, if someone is engaging in gaming, they are playing video games because it releases dopamine in their reward system, but they continue to play video games for 6-7 hours without stopping. When they do stop, they are dopamine depleted for that period of time, and they have no incentive, no motivation to do anything else. And that's why individuals with this dysfunction in the reward system, then they are incapable of doing anything else other than being motivated to pursue that type of behavior in order to maintain the release of dopamine into the reward system. The memory and the association with these behaviors become so intimate that you can consider someone who has substance use disorders or who has compulsive game playing, compulsive gambling, that they have an intimate relationship with these behaviors. It's difficult to disengage from these behaviors when it is so potent, when it is associated with memory and emotions, and eventually the prefrontal cortex of the central nervous system is also changed. The circuitry then changes the priorities that occurs in the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is necessary for executive functioning, making decisions, cognition, prioritizing, and engaging in what is rewarding and non-rewarding behaviors. But by the time that the dopamine system has been compromised and the circuitry has been distorted, the prefrontal cortex is unable to control the behaviors of these individuals in pursuing that same activity in order to restore the dopamine in their reward system. So all the activities that are involved, for instance, in substance use disorders, like criminal activities, deception, in order to obtain the substances so that they can get this dopamine release, are all being reinforced by the memory of the activity. The emotional content that is associated with it is very intense. And these individuals, they cannot help but be motivated to do all of these other activities that will lead to the behavior that brings on the dopamine reward. Over time, the individual changes in their personality. They are incapable of making good decisions. They can't differentiate between what is criminal, what is not criminal, and they really cannot have any meaningful experiences or relationships with others because they are experiencing all of this through their behaviors that have garnered this dopamine release that completely distorted the circuitry from the prefrontal cortex to the reward system and changes the limbic system. So I hope that through understanding this reward system, that people would understand the behaviors of individuals pursuing dopamine release by substances, by compulsive behaviors like gambling or food consumption. All these activities are the result of neuroplasticity, the changes in our central nervous system so that we can enable ourselves to be motivated and obtain that dopamine release that we are looking for. I hope that my explanation of the dopamine reward system has been informative and helpful. Thank you for your time.